Okay, we're back. So, on to step 4. Let's get this pinion on the motor with our motor plate. And that A13 there is just a spacer so that you can set your pinion depth, which is really handy on a lot of models. So what it isn't telling you to do here is to apply thread lock on the grub screw for the pinion. For years and years and years I never used to do that, but now that I actually have thread lock, they do give you a thread lock in the kit, but I have a bunch of these laying around, so might as well use the old ones. So I have my some of you people probably call them cocktail skewers, but I just call them toothpicks. So just a tiny bit of thread lock in there, and being an anaerobic gel, it doesn't go off until it's in the basically the absence of oxygen. So it won't set until everything's tightened up. So that's our pinion ready to go. We have our grub screw here, our M3 grub screw. Now we're just going to screw this into the pinion now, and as I do this I just look down the hole of the pinion and screw the grub screw, and as soon as I see it starting to protrude through, I stop. So now you know that's going to be close to when it actually screws onto the motor shaft. Now we have to remove this little rubber booty. Not sure why they put that rubber boot on the shafts all the time. It really can't be for like rust protection because nothing else is covered. But again, look at that gorgeous motor. And I understand you can't buy these printed Bigwig motors separate. They only come with the kits. Also understand they did a similar thing with the Avanti. Now these motors have multiple mounting holes. Well, 2. I mean, there's 2 ways you can set it. I don't know if there's any difference really, but what we're going to do is we're going to try and mount this motor in such a way that you can see that Bigwig sticker. Because if it's upside down and it looks like that in the car, then a bit of a waste of time having that pretty sticker on it, isn't it? So again, I'm going to use our grease trick. Not a lot of grease. You only need just that little bit. Now I'm going to try and pick up these 2 opposite holes here. A little bit of grease, which should hold that motor plate in place long enough for us to do what we need to do when we mount the motor. So now we need our A13 part, which sits over the shaft like that, and then our pinion. You just need to line up the grub screw with the flat on the shaft. It doesn't need to be 100% spot on, as long as it's close, because once you tighten it up, the pinion will pull in line with the flat on that shaft. And we give that a good tighten up. Then we can remove our A13 part. It doesn't tell you to do that until the next step, but it needs to be done anyway. So that is step 4. I need to find our mount holes again. Where are they? We want that to sit up, so we're going to pick up those holes. So this part is actually a bit tricky. Well, it is for me. So we have these spacer plates. Now we are running the 15 tooth pinion. It says here when using the 15 tooth pinion gear, this is how your motor plates need to line up. So you have these your motor plates here. All right, so actually let me just, not sure if you can see that. All right, so there are your motor plates there. So you need 2 motor plates, then the screw, and then 2 more motor plates. This is how they go together here. All right, so for me this is tricky because I don't know, it's just hard to hold everything together for me. So since we're using the 15 tooth pinion gear, We need our 3x30. You've got two different size screws here. There's a 27mm and a 30mm, so obviously get the longer one, BA12, which is the washer, quite a thick washer actually. And then our A6 part, which is this plastic part. All sits together like that. Now they have to, that screw has to be sandwiched by 4 of these spacer plates. Now, I'm pretty sure from memory with the boomerang, I just sat in the first 2 plates. Oops, you've got to be careful because they fall straight through the other side. Okay, so set in the first 2 plates, and the screw, which means you're not going to be able to get the other 2 plates in, are you? Let's try it from this way. I forget how I did it with the boomerang, and I haven't built the hotshot for a very long time, so well, there you go. You can get all those plates in from the opposite side. So that's pretty handy. So now we can position our motor, which is also a tricky part because you've got to kind of hold 1,000 different things at the same time. So that bottom screw needs to line up with that bottom hole. Now if you can just manage to hold everything together until you get that screw started in the motor. Now it feels tight because I'm actually on an angle here, so it's not going in straight. There we go. Okay, so that screw is started in the motor. Now we have our 3x27 with this crush tube here, which is this brass tube here. Now it tells you here, remove propeller joint before attaching. I've no idea why. Maybe. Yes, I think that's why. Okay, so with that joint in place, you probably can't get the head of your screwdriver into that screw. So we need to just find our gear mesh and then just line our screw up with the motor. And you know what I think's happened? The motor plate has moved on the motor and nothing is lining up. So this is a bit of a... I think we got it. Yep. Okay, so our motor's lined up. We can confirm that by trying to spin the out drives. They're not moving. We can actually, let's tighten that up first. There's our motor tightened up and looking very nice. We can put our out drive back in. Just have a look inside there and find out where that flat spot is in the gear. And that just slots straight back in. So that is our rear gearbox complete with the motor fitted. Step 6, we are assembling our front gears. So, a box full of parts here. So we have our H2, our H3, our main differential gear, our 3 side gears. There's also some bearings that need to go in there. So we have 2 850s, or you can see on the side here, two 1150s and 2 850s. So we'll dig them out. There's our 2 850s. And there's 2 1150s. So I think first, this is exactly the same as the rear diff. We're just going to grease up these slots where the spigots for the I don't know if you call them planetary gears, but the small bevel gears. I guess they're not a planetary set, are they? Similar, but not. Okay, so we'll put that aside. Our H3, which has a 1150 on this side, 850 on that side. Put that aside. And 1150, 850. We're definitely going to have to run this car. It's going to run so smooth. Okay, step 7 is basically the same as the last step for the rear diff, which is just putting everything together. So we'll start with this shaft again. It's in here somewhere. There it is. Start with this shaft and another 1150 bearing. Just be careful you don't, should have mentioned this in the last video, be careful you don't mix up your roller bearing and your thrust bearing, because they're both the same size, but you can see they look completely different. But be careful you don't mix them up. So we have our 1150 bearing on the end of that shaft. We have our yellow plastic cover that again clips on. Now that can get set aside. So we need this half of our gearbox, which is the G2. And again, same as the rear. We have our thrust washer, our bevel gear, and an 850 bearing, which we're going to just sit into the housing loosely so that we can line up our flat on our gear with the flat on our shaft and put everything together like that. So now we're free to spin that gear. We can put a bit of grease on there. Now, this front gearbox is essentially exactly the same as the rear. It's just a different shape and maybe a little bit smaller, and it doesn't have the motor installed into it. That's why it's smaller. So our outdrive through our 1150 bearing, again with a 4mm E-clip, which just gets lined up in the slot there and clipped on with the pliers. And again, checking that everything is moving as it should. The reason I do that is if you can't move, there will be a little bit of resistance there, but if you can't move the shaft while holding the E-clip still, there's a good chance that the E-clip isn't all the way on the shaft, which means it can spring back off. So just double check that. And again, our BA25 is the gear with the gears facing up and the spigot facing down. So that is going to slide onto that shaft there. And now that it's in there, we can probably put some grease on that bevel gear. So for the other half, we have our bevel gear and our transfer gear and our actual differential gear itself. So we're going to start with the outdrive. So push that bearing all up. They're actually a tight fit, these bearings, so you got to make sure they're pushed all the way in. Our outdrive, get my tweezers again. Some of these small parts are hard to pick up. We slide our E-clip into that slot. And just clip it on. Nice and simple. Like I said, the more you do, the more you work with these E-clips, the easier they do get. At first, they can be a right pain. Don't let that put you off. It does get easier. So a bit of grease on that bevel gear. You'll notice too when I'm installing the differential gear, I'm not greasing up these bevel gears. There's no need because the side bevel gears already have grease on them, so that's plenty of grease. I'm also going to put some grease in the center hole there, and the same on the other side for that 2mm pin. So next we need these transfer gears. So the H2 gear, which gets a there's two tubes here that go into these bearings. One's a 25 and one's a 30. So the 30mm goes into this center gear, and that can sit into its slot there. That seems to be sticking out a long way. Oh, it's in there, that must be right. Oh yeah, there's quite a long way for it to go. So our other one, 25mm, might actually sit the shaft in there first. Not really a shaft, it's a tube, isn't it? So this time I am going to grease the gear up before I install it, because once these are in there together, it's hard to get the grease in there. So it's not very often I do this, but sometimes it just needs to happen. Right, so we just stand our casing up a little bit, slide that gear home there, and now we give it a turn, and that's transferring all the grease from that gear to that gear, and that is plenty of grease. Now we can install our differential gear itself, not forgetting to grease up the spigot, and also I will apply some grease to this gear before installing it, because again it's going to be a bit difficult once it's all in there. So all those gears just line up nicely. So that's our two halves put together. There's your 2mm rod. You can put that in after the two halves are together, or you can put it in now. I find it always pushes itself out anyway, so you need to reset it. So now we can put our two halves together. We have 4 self-tapping screws and 2 machine screws. We also have this aluminium piece that sits in the front here. Now that through hole needs to go a specific way, and it shows you here. So it needs to be facing up like that through this way. That's actually your thread for your front bumper mount. That needs to sit a specific way, otherwise you won't be able to bolt your bumper on. Then you're going to have to pull pretty much most of the car apart to fix it. So make sure you got that right. Then we have this B8 piece, this plastic piece here, which looks to be maybe a body mount, or no, that might be for your battery cover mount. Actually, I guess we'll find out when we get there. So there's a little bit of flashing there from the moulding, so that's stopping it from going into the slot. So I'm just going to get my knife and clean that up just quickly. And the other side looks alright. So I don't think this is side specific. It looks like a symmetrical part. That's still a tight fit, so it's going to take a little bit of trimming. You can see the mould's actually quite off. Okay, so that's sliding in there nicely now. So we've lost our aluminium part again. So they're the only 2 parts that need to be sandwiched in between the 2 clamshells. So now it's a matter of basically just sliding everything together, making sure all the holes line up, making sure this That alloy part's going to keep falling out, but I think we can put it in after it's together. So it's just a matter of pushing together, turning everything as you're trying to fit it, making sure everything's fitting properly. So it appears we have a bit of a problem here. Oh no, that's okay. It's all good. So I was spinning this shaft and the drive cups weren't spinning, but it turns out it was the plastic spinning on the shaft. Okay, so if I get my screwdriver, sit it in there, hopefully you can see. No, you can't. You can see the outride's moving there now. So everything's moving nice and freely. Our aluminium piece can get slotted back in here in the correct orientation, which is up that way. And that's going to accept the 3x27 screw. It's going to go straight through there and backed up with a M3 flange nut. Again, I'm going to leave it loose until all the other screws are in. So just hold the whole assembly in the same direction it's showing you in the cartoon, and then just work your way around, putting all the rest of your screws in. 3x12, just screw them in a little bit as you get there. Another one in there. Now this 3x27 here goes through here, which is strange because it's a machine screw going into a blind plastic hole. But anyway, and we have another. Okay, I've made a terrible mistake. Check out this part. That should be inside there. Right there. Okay, so I missed that bit, so this has all got to come apart. I'm not going to show you that. We'll bring you back when it's all fixed. So, we're back. As you guys know, we're not scared to show our mistakes. We just hope you actually learn from our mistakes. So that A1 part is now installed. Now we're just tightening up all our screws, and that is going to be the end of bag A. So now we have our completed front and rear transmission assemblies running smoothly. Nice and smooth, actually. They feel a lot better than the Boomerang gearboxes. And that's actually turning the motor there. Actually, what we haven't done yet, before we close out this video, is we need to hook up our motor tester. So if this motor doesn't work with 2 AA batteries, or if this transmission doesn't work, I should say, there's something wrong. Now, being a 23 turn motor, it does take a little bit more than 3 volts to get it going, but as you can see, I just gave it a bit of a jump start. Sounds a little bit notchy, but that should wear in. I think the Boomerang sounded about the same. Okay, so that's working. So that's the end of step 8 and also the end of bag A. And we move on to bag B and start getting some suspension arms on. So we'll see you when that happens. Bye.